get more into a little presentation about myself later, but anyways, I'm here representing Trust Local Foods. We're a local foods distributor that is starting up in Appleton, Wisconsin. So I'm really not a Debbie Downer, but I really feel like college students, I really would have appreciated this, but you guys need to be prepared with what you're going to be up against when you graduate. It's a really tough market. An estimated 6 of 7 recent undergrads moved back in with their parents last year, and if I wouldn't have gotten this job, that probably would have been me too. Also, the unemployment rate for 20 to 24-year-olds is almost double that of the national average, which right now that sucks anyways. And also, we are faced now with the highest ever average student debt at about $23,000. And that's me right there at $32,000. But I'm not really a pessimistic person, and so instead of seeing this market as some sort of economic destruction, I prefer to see it as a chance to deconstruct. So I'm just going to read this just because it's one of my favorite quotes ever, and I'm going to talk about Yes Magazine later too. But the disruption of an economic crisis can allow a city, or a generation like us, to step back and reassess values. It's like what happens to a forest after a great fire. At first glance, it looks like everything is dead, but if you look closer, you'll find that the rich soil is fertile and ready for planting. So, just stepping back, I'm going to tell you a little bit of how I got to where I am today. It started when I became involved in the campus garden, our slug garden, my sophomore year. I stayed over the summer, and then I finally fulfilled my niche really of having schools come to our garden. But I had a problem through college because I really have a problem with theory-based learning. I have a really tough time. I like to get my hands dirty, and I learn better from experience. So I was like, well, there's something, I want to do something off campus because it's such a big world. And so I went to this publication that Wisconsin has. I'm not sure. Who all is from Wisconsin? Okay. And who's not? Woo! Well, the Farm Fresh Atlas is a publication, and there's one for each region of Wisconsin. But anyways, yeah, I was just sitting on our table, and I was, thinking of things to do one summer. And so I just went through the Farm Fresh Atlas and picked out a phone number and called it and asked if they had anything that I should, that I could do. And I ended up calling the person that I really needed to talk to for this region to get involved with anything sustainable. So then I graduated last spring with degrees in violent performance and environmental studies. And around the time I was starting my job search, so I was looking, for references, like a lot of you guys are going to do soon. And I ended up calling my boss from this internship, and he was like really sad, and he needed help, and I was like, what's going on? But anyways, he started the food distribution, Trust Local Foods, of the fall of 2010. And his wife had been diagnosed with breast cancer, and she did all of the accounting for the business, and she was on her deathbed, and the business was falling apart, and so Fred's my friend, so, and I was going to go into food distribution anyways, just maybe more conventional, so I was like, yeah, let's do this. So that's how I started working for Trust Local Foods, and along the way I picked up being coordinator to the Farm Fresh Atlas for our region. And then, yeah, I'm just going on a little trip in May, and hopefully I'll be back soon after recuperate. So just because this isn't the focus of my presentation, I'm going to talk about some of the things I've been doing in our area, and I'm not sure where all of you are from, but it takes some digging, but if you talk to the right people and it's really community type, orienting yourself. If you go out in the community and figure out who you need to talk to, there's opportunities like this everywhere. So the Farm Fresh Atlas is a consumer's guide to local foods. It's a list of farms, local food businesses, farmers markets, community gardens, and certified public use kitchens. And its objectives are to increase direct sales between feeders, I don't like the word consumers, but between consumers and farmers, and also it is supposed to build communities and economies through local food, and increase business for locally owned food businesses. And these are just a couple of our participants. that we've had. Usually if a farm gets in the atlas, they stay in the atlas. And the other hat I wear is working for Trust Local Foods, which I mentioned before. We just distribute local foods to small retail shops and restaurants in our area. We work side by side with small farmers and processors. We're basically the mediator between retail and production. And we coordinate buying clubs. I'm not sure, does everyone know what a buying club is? Okay, well for those of you who don't know, it's just a group of families that can order from a wholesaler together. And like UNFI has a buying club program. They're a larger organic food distributor, but the difference is that we have 100% exclusively local products. And we're opening up a retail storefront, which is cool. And this is Aaron, this is Katie, this is Eric, he's an urban producer. This is Fred, the guy I called, and that's me. So, a couple of the things that our company is really proud to have done so far are gauging where our region currently stands. Even if it's what we didn't want to see, like we have realized that our region is extremely underdeveloped as far as our ability to get food out to our immediate communities. Also, we've helped a lot of farmers develop their products. We do taste testings, we have presence at farmers markets. We just helped Guardians of the Field Farm fix their pepperoni. It had too much fennel in it, and ever since they changed the proportions, they've sold a lot more pepperoni. Another thing, we have to look at, I guess, small accomplishments, just because this is not the current system. We're not in the current framework with this, so we really have to pat ourselves on the back for every step up we take, and I think that's important for you guys to know too, is that it's really slow moving. But we've also increased sales of local foods with our current customers. They just, started buying a couple things from us, and then over time they've started buying more things from us. And also with our Buy Local team, the Buying Club program, we've started to rally consumers together and organize them in a way that they can really support their local community. But there's still a lot of future challenges. Like I said before, we're the mediators for dialogue between farms and restaurants and retail shops. And it's just going to take a lot more in the future. Like chefs right now will order outrageous quantities of meat that they don't understand that to get that quantity of meat you have to butcher 3 cows. But what happens to the rest of the meat? There's not enough cool storage space to be able to butcher that many cows at a time, especially without the promises there that they'll keep ordering. Also, finding ways to keep track of farm inventory has been an issue. Our business doesn't want to keep a large inventory because that's a lot of why waste happens in the food system. Also, compiling small inventories for larger orders placed with us has been really hard to do as well. And then figuring out, pickups from farms, how to tie that into route logistics. This is a grassroots effort. And also standardizing pound pricing. There's such a variation right now between price per pound for the same cuts, just with farms in our region, that it's just a headache on the distribution side to deal with those prices. So now I'll just talk about my experience as a young recent grad with this and why I chose to do this instead of going the conventional route. First of all, it's changed my idea of what I need to be satisfied in life. I think we're all at a time where we have to step back and really figure out how we want to live. And I know it's really super theoretical right now, but this is the first time that I really had to step back and say, what do I need in life? And I've realized that I'd be satisfied with a lot less than I needed even in college. Also, a more alternative type of payment. I don't get paid, I don't go to work, clock in, and get paid per hour, or I don't get a salary, but I get paid, with room and board, cell phone. I get a monthly stipend, gas money, these types of things. And I've still been able to pay my student loans, so it is possible to take a different route. And if you're creative, you'll find a way to do it. Yeah, I live with lots of my coworkers. We live together, but I guess that's what the guys on Facebook did too, so it's not that weird. Also, if you're going to be involved in a business startup, be prepared to work really long hours. I read an article the other day about why women usually don't, and it's because, you know, like in your 20s, I know this is might be scary for you guys, so close your ears if this scares you. But, like, you know, women are more prepared to start families, and that's what they kind of want to do, and they don't want to put their time into work, and as much as it takes to start a business. So, anyways, there's a bunch of different articles you can read about who you should pick as business partners, how genders interact. And I just want to show you guys this. It's freelancersunion.org. If you're going to be any sort of independent contractor, or if you're going to just get by on your own and not necessarily work for, you know, a company or a corporation, they have individual health insurance and benefits packages. So that might be a really nice resource to use, especially if you're thinking about going into production. How many of you guys are thinking about going into production? Okay. And then, are there any who are thinking more like distribution or that type of work? Okay. Yeah, guys, it takes both. Like, that is so great that I see hands for both. So, the specific tasks that I've accomplished for Trust Local Foods vary. I can put a lot in my resume. I've learned a lot just through the School of the Hard Knocks. And basically, that's just been me researching and doing it, because that's what grassroots efforts take. First of all, after Kathleen died, their financial records were a mess, and I literally sat down with copies of checks and found the invoice for at least 1,000 invoices. Also, I synthesized our accounts receivable and payable with QuickBooks, so now we can keep track of them very well. I helped establish our buying club program, and I designed our website. It's definitely not corporate looking, but it'll do for the first go around. So now I'm going to focus on, through about the year I've had, to see what's really needed and what is lacking, and the place that young people can fill. I'll talk about what's needed from young people, and this is Andy Sal, Ben's business partner, from Gourmet Grass Fed. They have a really good beef jerky, and did you bring a sample? Dang it. If you guys can, try the cherry chipotle beef jerky, it's so good. So anyways, I've broken this down into 5 things that are really needed right now. Consciousness, innovation, planning. Planning is a huge one, coordination, and also risk-taking. So we're going to start with talking about there's 2 different schools of thought that exist right now. One is that you can take the current framework, which is, you know, Dr. Pepper Snapple owns the brand of Welch's, which is sub-owned by a cooperative, but also sub-owned by people within the business part of the thing, of the brand. There's this route, and so any divergence from this would be like people who think they can transform the current system, and that usually happens like more at the top-down levels. And then there's this other framework that people think, you know, it has nothing to do with that. It should be separate on a completely different plane than this. It should start with the people, and a movement should be built based on positive things. And I want to stress right now that everything should be positive. Any change that comes about should be positive. Like, it shouldn't be a revolt to something. It should be what you want to see, and just do it, you know. So, yeah, this movement right now in Appleton started with, you know, a group of people seeing that they would rather support Wisconsin economies, eat food where they know where it came from, make sure that, you know, farm work are being treated with justice, and also just talking to your neighbors. I mean, I'll talk about that with this in a little bit, and farmers markets. People like to go to farmers markets in this area. And a business can grow up, but just like John Eckert was saying, like, there needs to be a point at which you are satisfied. You know, like, the current system is just like, you keep growing. But, you know, what do you need to be satisfied, and that's where you should stop. You should only take care of, you know, your immediate region. Also, the differences I've seen between these 2 frames of thought are local organic family is being used as more of a marketing technique than actually coming from the people, and that's really scary if you think about it. It's necessary because, you know, we're so distanced from food in the system that that manipulation is needed to make you trust your food. Whereas if it's in, you know, more of a grassroots type effort, I mean, that comes naturally. It's just part of reason you're doing it. Okay. Also, there is lack of coordination right now between all of the blue players in our system. What we've started to see, really, it's hush-hush and kind of under the table, but we've started to see farmers having these loose cooperatives or associations where a farm is really being used as a brand name, kind of. So, for example, one of our farms, we just found out about this, we buy elk and bison from him, and we're like the most local level you can go. We buy elk and bison from him, but we just found out that he doesn't even raise bison. He buys it from his neighbor who raises bison, and then they just sell it under Navarino as the brand. And so there's confusion. I mean, there's space for confusion with this, because then you can see that, like, we really don't even know where our food's coming from, even in the local food movement. And that's what we're coming up against right now. So really, we need help working with producers, and just getting these things legitimized and clear to the consumer, because right now it's not happening. Also, we need committed support between businesses. This is kind of happening now in Appleton too, with the Fox Valley Marketing Coalition that's just started up. It's hopefully in the future going to be a group of businesses that keep each other in check and support each other through actual investments, financial investments, and support in the other business. And I kind of am comparing this to a complex food web, except for that, you know, these are all businesses, not animals. So that if, well, I don't even know a good example for this. Okay, so, I don't know, if a mouse trafficked their children and they needed to do that to survive, and this person cut them off, they could still traffic them to these two. And that's what we need to see with local food businesses. Also, Kangaroo Restaurant, they're a local food mobile. They go around the Fox cities and they sell local foods, but they have a great Facebook page, and they do just little efforts like showcasing other local food businesses that have a feed. Like Red Barn just got an award for cheese, and so they put that up there, and supporting each other in that way. Also, we need eco-boomer farmers, which is, you know, all of you looking to go into production. There needs to be less of the spirit of competition and more, you know, the intention to work together. Because the way I see it, it's kind of like skateboarders, like having, you know, a thing against rollerbladers. It's like people see you the same in society. You should really just try to work together. No, it's really, it's like petty. It's petty. No, it's petty, and I don't want to say, I'm not saying that the farmers we work with now are petty. It's just that, you know, they've been brought up in a system where, you know, money has been the most important thing, and if you're trying to take care of your family, that's completely understandable, but they don't understand the alternative, you know.
Did you coin that term?
What?
Eco-boomers?
No, I did not. We're also Generation Y. I forgot the other one, but no, we're eco-boomers. Also, associations with a diversity of trades. In the best case scenario, you would come together as a community and figure out what everybody wanted to buy, and then just make sure there's enough diversity for that. Like right now, you know, we sell blue chips, but we don't have anybody that makes blue chips closer to here, so we buy them from Janesville, Wisconsin. But if there was somebody who made a good product closer to home, we would switch to them. So just making sure that it's diverse at the smallest level is really important. And also, this hasn't been expected from farmers, but coordination of similar trades really needs to happen. And really, I think farmers should have some of the responsibility to coordinate. Right now, people just buy from them, and then they get wrapped up in the trap where you just really need to, you know, keep selling to the same person, or you lose all your business. But we need the smaller, you know, beef farmers to get together and say, okay, we're going to have this many amount of cows to go to butcher during these months. You need to have these many during these months. You need to have these many during these months, so that if we get an order, we can fill it. And so these are just a couple of the young farmers in our area. Katie, she's going to be a grain farmer in Plymouth. And then Luke, he is out of Twin Elms Garden. I think it's in Pulaski. And then Yvonne Renierson and Steven Shoemaker, they just moved to Dark County from Madison. So, And the last thing that is really in need right now from younger people or from our generation is help with web and graphic design. A lot of farms, if you go to their websites, you'll know what I mean. It's really grassroots. They just try it the best they can, but guys, we can help. Also, creating ordering and invoicing systems. This is more for the distribution part of things, but creating ordering and invoicing systems that are compatible with and realistic for small-scale food distribution. And I want to point out there are some of them, like this is foodclub.org. This is a system that buying clubs use, and the Oklahoma Food Cooperative has a great model, except for, that's the way it is. They're not going to develop it. And really, we found out that they need to be region-specific. Like, we've researched a lot and just realized that we need our own things as a company for this region, and every region needs that. Also, duplicate efforts need to be eliminated. Right now, I think one of the most important paths you could go on is bridging infrastructure. There's just so many innovative people, but not a lot of research is done, and then you realize like a year down the line that you're just doing the same thing that so-and-so is doing. So my work in the future and what I'm just going to try to do is just compile a lot of information that a lot of people are trying to get out to the public and eliminate duplicate efforts. This is something I've come across in the Farm Fresh Atlas too already. Like, there'll be 4 different websites that I have to give the most accurate farmers market information about, just because everyone's trying to collect it on their own, and it's just like, depend on, one entity to collect it and update everyone. So it's messy, but we can definitely get beyond that. So some parting advice is, be innovative, create an alternative if you don't see it. Just because it's not put in front of you doesn't mean that it's not a good idea. And also, listen to the older people because they have experience, but at the same time, if they don't think something's a good idea, sometimes you just have got to go with, what you feel, and you need to rally support of young people too, because we have a very different train of thought, I figured out, in the world, just generational differences, and you just really need to trust your gut and be innovative. Also, organizing and planning ideas is extremely important. I wasn't around Trust Local Foods before it started up, but if I would have been, there would have been some planning that, now we just have to deal with and kind of do it on the way, kind of like by the seat of our pants. But when you're working from the ground up, organizing community is the most important thing you can do, and being ready to take steps forward. And it is slow moving, I'll just tell you that. Also, choose your business partners carefully. There's a ton of research and articles written about that, so just, don't get into business with your best friend just because you guys have been, hanging out since 2nd grade. Also, assess risks, but then take them. And that's really bold to do, especially with this economy when we have so much debt already. But if you have a good idea, maybe you won't, get any venture capital, but when you feel like you have a good idea, do the research necessary to make an informed decision, and then go for it. Seriously, go for it. And the last thing that I would recommend all of you do is just read Yes Magazine. Does anyone read that already? It's so great. Like, in this world, I was an environmental studies major, and I left every class feeling like, doomsday, it was tomorrow. But this magazine is really good because it takes a lot of the real life issues we're facing today, and it just it changes the perspective, and it focuses more on resolution than conflict, and that's really important for our generation, especially since we're going to be, this is going to be a tough generation. So, thank you. Are there any questions?
I'd like to ask you a question. So, what was the outcome of your educational experience at Lawrence? What about the violin and your preparation to be a musician? You are now an entrepreneur. What was the value of education in preparing you with this new set of skills that you talked about? Did you take business courses, or how did you develop these skills?
With a lot of hard work. No, I mean, and like, you know, this was talked about in the keynote too, but I have a problem with the school system in general in the United States, just because, you know, learning by experience isn't valued as highly as going to college. And, you know, maybe I would have liked to do an apprenticeship or something more hands-on. But, no, I think Lawrence and being in a liberal arts college introduced me to different ways of thinking. I'm a problem solver. And then I just learn along the way. And I'm still pursuing violin, but I'm just focusing on this right now. Yeah.
Did you have the skills for website development, or is that something you did on your spare time, or in your spare time? Or
Yeah, that was spare time. There are some computer programs you can use now that are, you don't need to know like script to write a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Do you see much place of advancement for like sort of what I've thought a lot about going into something like this, but sort of more on like the higher level, like more of a upper regional level. Do you see much place in like opportunities at that place in that sort of scheme of things, or there's a lot of the opportunity still on the ground floor that's really local?
Do you live in Wisconsin?
I live in Minnesota.
Yeah, I would see a few. I know for Wisconsin we have programs like Savor Wisconsin, something special from Wisconsin. I would see if there's something at that more the state level. It'll usually be a DATCAP program.
DATCAP?
Yeah.
Did you mostly do work with like the farmers and creating the system, or did you work at all with consumers?
Yeah, we've done most of our work. Well, actually, we've done a little of work with both sides. The biggest problem I see, though, is that till this point, or I don't know when it changed into this, but you know, at least in our region, not a lot is expected out of producers. And I think we need just really young, innovative, intelligent farmers who are willing to take on part of that work. You know, and producers, like, they do what they do best. You know, they grow food and they love it and they're great at it. But I think it wouldn't be unreasonable to ask a little bit more of them with help from it. But we've just been mediating. You know, we get feedback from consumers, then we tell the farmer, and then, you know, the farmer can't meet something, they can't butcher an animal this month, so then we go back to the consumer.
Well, I'm curious about your work with consumers then.
Okay.
Have you been reaching out to the community, to people who may not have normally known about CSAs or been aware of local food movement, or has it mostly been like preaching to the choir and people are coming to you?
Yeah, what is your marketing strategy mainly?
Right now, we do work mostly with people who have wanted to see something like this in the region for a long time, and so they're willing to work with us. We have been at events and expos where, you know, people want to know about CSIs. So, yeah, we've been to both, but it's just very hard when everybody is so much in the framework right now that it would take so much time just to convert one person, you know? Yeah.
Do you sell produce at like roadside or like at farmers markets, or are you more like people come to you like and order stuff? Like, how does that work?
So we have two different markets. We do restaurants and retail, which is they have an account with us and then they order by the week. But then I'm not sure if it's like this anywhere else, but in our area you can't go to a summer farmers market as a distributor. You can only do that at the winter farmers markets. So winter is the time we get out and are on that bottom level with people. Yeah.
What's the most rewarding aspect about what you do in regards to agriculture? What do you like the best? What's the funnest part of your day? Most fun.
Boy. Can I think about that? And
Sure.
take another question and then come back to that?
All right.
Yeah.
So what are you doing in the winter time? How are you reaching people that would normally be shopping at the summer farmers market, individuals as opposed to your retail or business customers?
Well, I mean, we're in Wisconsin, so when there's no summer farmers market, people go to the indoor winter farmers market.
Oh, okay, so, okay.
They're the same, it's the same crowd.
Yeah, okay.
Any more questions? Yeah.
Sounds like you're working really hard, and you talked about reaping different kinds of benefits than the typical, 9-to-5, get a paycheck. And I'm wondering if you feel a lot of freedom in that structure, or if it feels paternalistic. Do you feel like you're able to work within it, in a way that's truly rewarding?
Yes, it feels paternalistic at times, which is why I put in here, choose your business partners very carefully. If everyone feels like they're contributing equally, then everybody has a feeling of independence, like you're in this together. But if you're depending on someone for favors, for example, if you work for a sole proprietor, that would be a bad situation. So, yes, it feels paternalistic at times, but that's why you should just, find people you want to go into business with, and then take equal risk.
I wanted to hear about the storefront that you talked about. What lead up to that? What is that? Where is it?
It's going to be at our warehouse, which is by Cherryland's Best, right off of 41, Northern Appleton. Right now, we don't have any cooperatives open in the area. Bridget's working on one in Oshkosh, and then there's also one in Green Bay forming, but they don't have enough membership to open yet. So there's no place other than a farmer's market where you can go in this area and get local products. Just stop by after work to get them. So, that's why we're opening the store.
Well, there is also, of course, the farm.
There is the farm, which is, if you want to travel across the lake, yeah.
Yeah, I realize that most people don't, but that's always an option.
Yes. I guess, okay, let me come back to your question. Okay.
Is it just like seeing smiles on people's faces when you make connections, provide them with food that they want? Is that rewarding? I feel like that'd be awesome.
Well, the funny part about my work is that I'm in the office and I don't get to see the smiling faces. I think the most rewarding part about my job is that I'm doing the grunt work for things that really need to happen to get outside. That's really rewarding. Setting up the website was probably the most rewarding thing for me, just because we just needed that presence so badly, and it's not perfect, but it's first start.
It's kind of like if you're a defensive player on a soccer team, which I was, you don't get any credit, right? The ones that score the goals, the offense, the forwards, they get all the credit. But the second the team loses, guess who gets everything? The defenders do. So, but without the defenders, you're going to get scored on and you're going to lose. So you play a very vital role.
Yeah, and I just want to let you guys know it's not really daunting, and I know everything you read could be really scary, and it gets less scary when you're actually in the world. But in college, I know you just have to be, in your studies and on your campus, so everything in its own time. Yeah.
What does the future look for Trust Local Foods as markets expand and hopefully expand? And what's the vision for this business as it happens?
Actually, yeah, that's an interesting question, because earlier in our history this year, we took on a milk route that went down to Madison, but we were still considering ourselves, local mission. And I think it's really hard not to want to expand that way, just because that's how expansion works these days, is you get bigger and you broaden. And we actually dropped that route because we realized that wasn't our mission, and that was a huge turning point for Trust Local Foods. And I guess right now we just want to get really efficient at what we do, which means developing from the inside out, and doing business with really close partners that we can depend on and that are willing to put work in. And the slide I showed before, we're focusing more right now as a business on the bottom up and doing the coordination needed to make that happen. Yeah.
Do you see any potential problem in focusing on locality to the point of excess. Like I don't know what that would mean exactly, but like to the sense of ignoring good opportunities if they happen to be like 150 miles away as opposed to 75. Like,
Well, I can tell you, operating within 100 miles, we use, you know, about $1,000 a month in gas, and I don't know. I'm not sure if that's, you know, I consider us the smallest scale possible, and transportation is still necessary. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's such a fluid term. It's just you have to figure it out. But
yeah, region specific.
yeah, yeah.
I know that it's about like local Wisconsin farmers. Are there any farms that your beliefs don't align with, so you don't do business with them, or is it more just about any farm that's in Wisconsin?
Yeah, right now it's been by like the seat of our pants, and the thing is, something like our local food distribution, we're in demand. It's just that we need to organize systems so that when a farm approaches us, of course they want to sell their stuff through us. Who doesn't? But we need to really make a screening process, which we haven't had the most effective one so far. So, yeah. But we would like to stick to family farms and not. We haven't created standards, you know, like more than this much acreage. We're not going to allow you as a farm or as a vendor. Yeah.
What exactly is your range for local? Is it 100 miles or?
It's 100 miles. Yep. Yeah.
How long has Trust Local Foods existed? When was it started?
It was started fall of 2010, November of 2010.
So brand new.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.